I wanted to congratulate Elliot. He is now a full-time employee. He graduated college, so I thought that'd be really cool to congratulate him on his success. He's officially our third intern, so it's been really cool to kind of have really good interns. Morgan started off as an intern. Now she supervises our interns, so it's kind of cool to see that progression. So congratulations to Elliot and to Morgan for supervising him so well. Also to Loretta, some of you already noticed that Loretta is now the coordinator over at Eric, and I think that's really good. I think it's been a little overdue that we've had a coordinator over there. There should be a few more coordinator positions opening up within the next, I would say that the next 3 to 4 months, there should be probably 2 more coordinator positions opening. So that's kind of exciting. 5-year celebration. So we are officially in business 5 years now, which is insane. So yay us, that's really cool. We are going to be having a celebration. I keep on messing up this date, guys.
20th
what?
of May, the 20th of May.
So May 20th, we're having a carnival. There'll be a basket / silent auction. If anybody wants to donate or knows anybody that wants to either donate money or donate towards a basket, we are happy to take any type of donations. In the past, we've had people do like the nail polish baskets or Avon or things like that. So certainly let us know if anybody's interested in participating in the planning of it. Again, that's also something that, we're never going to turn anybody away that wants to help plan anything. So certainly if anybody's interested in that. We are also going to be doing a fundraiser for popcorn fundraiser that I'm going to be setting up. Now the whole thought of both of these, the 5-year anniversary celebration is not just an anniversary celebration, it's also a fundraiser. Our hope is to fundraise money, and that money would go to bonuses for staff. It'll go to extracurricular activities for the people we support. So I mean, all of this money will go back to the staff and people we support. So the more money we raise, the better it'll be for all the staff and the people we support. So it'll be pretty cool. So anybody's help, we have a letter that I'm going to be posting and you can give to people and ask for donations. We just ask that you document that and send that to Michelle so that she can put that on the list so that we send thank yous and things like that. We're tax exempt, so people can get a tax write-off if they donate and stuff like that. So we send all that proper information to people when they donate. Does anybody have any questions about the 5-year celebration? Exciting. I'm really excited. Okay, so unfortunately, sometimes in these meetings, we have to cover things like policies. So I am going to briefly cover some policies and then we'll kind of, and then what I'll do is I'll post them so then you guys can have access to those policies and, and read them on your own. Are you able to see the dating and family conflict policy that I just put up?
Yeah.
This morning it didn't work, so. Okay, so this is really simple. We created a dating policy, just the bigger, and a family conflict policy. And this is really just the bigger we get, the more this becomes something that is not necessarily an issue, but a potential issue. So we just want to cover it before it becomes an issue. We don't have any issues with anybody having romantic relationships at work between coworkers and things like that. We just ask that we just want to establish some boundaries. So one big concern is if a supervisor or a manager is overseeing somebody that they're in a romantic relationship with, or any type of relationship, like a father and son or an aunt and uncle or something like that. It's important that we create boundaries so that we don't have family members or people in romantic relationships supervising each other. That's pretty typical for anywhere that you're working. So we just ask that if you do become romantic with somebody that you let us know so that we can determine if there's a conflict, and then just people in other houses, So we had a situation where we had a wife and a husband, and she was the house manager of one of the houses. So he just didn't work in that house. It was really that simple. And he worked in other houses and he worked in the community. So it's not anything that's a big issue. We just want to make sure that, that we have perimeters in place. And we just don't want anything to interfere with your overall productivity, right? Because we're at work to support the people that we support, not to have relationships. Obviously, any type of physical contact during work is prohibited. And that could be sisters fighting, but none of that is allowed. So just kind of letting you know that any type of physical engagements at work is going to be an issue and would probably result in termination. Employees who have a personal relationship, we just ask that you have conversation with us. If you're off duty, then we just ask that you keep that stuff private. If you have a problem with a coworker, we ask that you keep that out of the workplace. When a conflict of interest or a potential risk is identified, we just ask that you talk to us and we can resolve the problem. It's not a big deal. Related employees, and I think that this is probably more of something that we run into more than anything. Typically, if it's two coworkers, so let's say it's two DSPs and they're related, we do ask that when possible that you're not working in the same house on shift at the same time. There's only one scenario that potentially is going to happen, and that would be at Fleet, because all the rest of the houses typically only have one staff. But also this could be, sometimes emergencies arise and things like that, and it's unavoidable, and we understand that. So it's just talk to a supervisor or coordinator and just discuss it with them, and then we'll kind of figure out where we're going to go from there. Does anybody have any questions about this? I mean, it's not a big issue, so I don't want to cover it too much. I will be, like I said, I will be sending out these policies for people to review a little more in depth. Okay, so the next one is inclement weather or bad weather, which I said it this morning, and people are going to say, oh, don't say it. I feel like we're probably getting in the clear with this, but we'll see. I think we're due for a big storm. So we'll see. I mean, I'm hoping. So we'll see what happens. With that being said, we just asked that staff plan. And we didn't have a policy before, so this is just a completely new policy. We had a policy memo, and we just felt the bigger that we're getting, the more important it is to have a policy. You guys can all review this independently. The coordinators are mostly responsible for making sure that you guys have all the supplies that you need, but you guys are responsible for communicating that to the coordinators that, like, hey, we don't have rock salt, or hey, we don't have an ice scraper in one of the vehicles and things like that. So we just ask that you guys communicate that to the coordinators. The main point in this one is just letting people know that you should be trying to report to work regardless. If you have a brother or cousin or somebody that has four-wheel drive, ask them to drive you into work. We're of the business where we work 24 hours a day, and the work that we do is pretty important in the sense that we take care of other people that aren't able necessarily to take care of themselves. So it is important that regardless of what the weather is, that people show up to work. So planning ahead, staying at one of the houses if you have to, asking somebody to drive you in. Kim has agreed to drive people to work if need be. So that's certainly okay. I know Michelle Palmer has also offered in the past to drive people to work. So we certainly can help you with that. In bad weather, we do ask that you give us 3 hours notice, because it could take somebody longer. And that's the thing. Just basically what you should be doing in bad weather. Oh, can you guys just make sure you mute? And in bad weather, you basically want to make sure you're giving yourself extra time to get somewhere and just going slower. I mean, that's the name of the game. Just go slow. If you are unable to report to work, then you're going to have to take PTO. So that will come out of your PTO. So I think, does anybody have any questions about inclement weather?
No.
Okay. It was just a policy we just needed. We just didn't have one. Let's see, team meeting, those are notes. Cancellation of services. This was just an update to a policy that we already had. Let's see. So if an employee is short of hours, I think that we've been relatively good, and I think you guys can agree that we've been relatively good about making sure that staff have hours, like they make up hours if need be and things like that. So everybody's required to do 24 hours of training. So certainly talk to us, talk to me. I'll help you get on Relias. You can take trainings. The biggest thing is making sure that you are proving that you did these things while you weren't working. So you should be making sure that you're getting those training hours, giving either the coordinators or myself your training forms so that I know that you were actually doing these things when you were there. And you can also, if there's something that you know needs to be done at one of the houses, like for example, you might say, hey, you know what, Norway's been looking a little rough. Like, can I do some deep cleaning at Norway for the hours if somebody isn't there? That's okay too. So talk to us and we'll work with you on making up those hours. But like I said, you do have to have some sort of documentation of what you were doing for those hours, because we can't just pay people for doing nothing. ISP reviews, things like that are totally fine. And then the other thing is to keep in mind, if you have somebody, let's say, that's in a hospitalization situation where they might be hospitalized for a long period of time, maybe they're in the hospital for a week or something like that, we may reassign you temporarily. And that's really just so that you have work hours. We don't want to cut anybody of hours. We don't want anybody to be unhappy because they work, you guys have bills to pay. So we know that you need to work your 40 hours or your 20 hours. So we are willing to work with you, but we need you to work with us too, which may mean that you might have to, let's say you're in residential, we might say, hey, we could use you in the community, or, vice versa. We might say to somebody in the community, like, hey, we could use you in residential. And if it's for a week, it's for a week, it's getting you paid. So that's kind of our main priority is to meet your needs and the people we support. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. And then on the agenda, I have attendance. I'm not going to go over the actual policy. What I wanted to do is just point out that, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. We are going to be going to a scheduling app and a time and attendance app. That is going to change some things. For example, when people are switching shifts, it'll need to be approved before that can happen. And things like if you're switching shifts with somebody that already has 40 hours of overtime, there's potential that that's going to be turned down. So it's going to give us an opportunity to track that a little bit more, because what we're finding right now is that people are switching their shifts with people. And, somebody, let's say that's a part-time that only gets 20 hours every 2 weeks, is switching shifts with somebody and they're getting 50 hours of overtime. So that's kind of causing some issues budgetarily with us. So we want to make sure that we are starting to put some limits on that. Requesting time off is also going to be done through the app. So we do have to pan all this out, and there's just going to be some things that are different once we have the app. But we just don't really know what that's all going to look like yet. So I just wanted to kind of give people a heads up about that. PTO policy, this is my favorite one of the night, because I think that I know it benefits everybody. So the first thing with our PTO policy is one of the things that we did add was a bereavement day for the loss of a pet. So it's one pet per year. So now you can take a bereavement day if you lose a pet. So I thought that was kind of generous of us. And then the other thing is we kind of altered, because we've been around now for 5 years, we had to alter and add. If you look, our old policy only went up to 5 to 9 years. And now we had to go 7 to 10 years because we've just been around longer. So that's kind of exciting. But then if you also notice, we increased for full-time employees, we increased your PTO hours per pay from 3 to 4. And then from 3 years to 4, we've increased it from 5 to 6. And then it goes to 7, which is the same. And then it goes up to 8. So we've increased the amount of PTO that people have. It was just mathematically better for us, and we just figured you guys deserve it, so why not do it? So you are still able to carry over, full-time employees are still able to carry over a week of vacation. So you can carry over a week. Now, we did also change part-time employees. So previously, part-time employees got accrued 3 days during the year. So during the year, they were able to accrue 3 days. Now we changed it to, if you've worked for us 2 years to 4 years as a part-time employee, you can accrue 3 days. 5 years to 7 years, you can accrue 5 days. And then 8 years to 10 years, you can accrue 7. And I think that's rather generous because a lot of other places don't give any PTO time to people who are part-time. So I thought that was pretty cool. We have a lot of part-time employees. We probably have half and half. So I thought that was kind of a good idea. Any questions?
I'm just getting on. I'm Jackie.
Oh, no
Uh,
problem, Jackie.
The part-time you say, does that include the PRNs or what? Is that different?
No, that's specifically part-time, but if we have PRNs that are doing, because I know that, like, for example, like we have one person who he was considering himself a PRN, and him and I just recently talked, and I said, you're not a PRN, you're doing 20 hours every 2 weeks. You know, you're not a PRN, you're part-time. And he's just like, oh, it doesn't really matter. I said, it does. I said, you get some PTO, and, you know, and you get, you know, and you also get, you're eligible for death benefits and things like that. So it's definitely behooves people to be part-time over PRN, but you do have to work 20 hours within 2-week period. So that's who's entitled to those. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Close that. Let's see. I am going to agency vehicles. Again, this is really just that policy was updated to make sure that people were wearing seatbelts. That was the it just wasn't in it, and that the vehicles needed to be locked. It just wasn't in the policy. I think that was kind of, we thought that was a no-brainer, but we had to put that in the policy. We also wanted to remind people that when it comes to reimbursements for meals, it's not, the reimbursement for meals is for you, is for staff. It's not meant to be for the people that we support. So if they don't have the money to go out, then they shouldn't be going out to eat. With that being said, there are times where we give special permission. Let's say maybe even today, I don't know what the deal was with Leona, but you know, she turned 60. We might have brought her lunch. Sometimes we do that. If there's some sort of special event, somebody's doing really well and we want to cover it, that's fine. If you have a conversation with somebody like Sierra and you say, hey, Sierra, you know, could the agency cover this lunch because so-and-so is turning 60? That's fine, but you need to put that in your reimbursements that we are doing, you know, that I spoke to Sierra and she said that this was okay. So if you're going to be covering a meal for somebody that we support, you need to be talking to a supervisor and making sure that it's approved. The other thing is also encouraging people you support to make food. It's just it's a more economical decision. You know, our goal is to teach them independent living skills and things like that. So when we are going to question, like there's times where we see people putting several meals out with somebody in a week or in a day. You know, you're doing a long shift with somebody and you've eaten 2 meals out. We'd prefer for you to teach them those skills of cooking and things like that. So we are going to limit that just a little bit because they really shouldn't be eating out that much. That's a lot of it's just a lot of eating out. It's not always that good for you, and we want to teach them to cook. I mean, we're being paid to teach people skills, and cooking is definitely one of those skills. So we want to see a little more of that. Does anybody have any questions? Hi. So this is probably the most controversial of the policies coming up. So I just wanted to put it on the screen. So one of the things that we did is we took out can everybody see the policy? that I'm moving around on the screen. It should say holiday up on top.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we did is out of the PTO policy, we created a holiday policy. So what we're going to be doing, and this policy applies to all employees. So we changed up the holidays first. What we did is we did take Easter out. So we're going to be celebrating New Year's, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and 2 floating holidays. So we're no longer going to be counting birthdays as holidays, but we are, sorry, Priscilla, I know that you were upset about the birthday thing.
Yes.
However, everybody will be getting two floating holidays. So those you can just use at your leisure. The only thing about that is that you just have to request them 3 weeks in advance like you would PTO. And when you request the time off, you just put that you're using it for your floating holiday, and that's fine. And so everybody has 2 floating holidays per year. So with that being said, we clarified that the office will be closed on New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. On half days, it'll be half days on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. And that's just kind of like the building thing. So we wanted to clarify that. And then let's see. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a team 1 and a team 2. That's going to be randomly selected. I found like this Wheel of Fortune thing. And Sierra doesn't know it, but I volunteered her to do it with me. And we're going to randomly just pick people. It's literally going to turn a wheel and we're going to pick team 1 and team 2. So everybody will be on team 1 or team 2, including ourselves. And the first year, this will start as of the 1st of next month. The first year, team 1 is going to be required to work Memorial Day, Labor Day, Christmas Day, and the first year, team 2 will be working Independence Day, Thanksgiving Day, and New Year's Day. Then the following year, it will switch. So then the following year, team 2 will be working Memorial Day, Labor Day, and Christmas, and team 1 will be working Independence Day, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. So everybody's going, regardless of what your schedule is. So if you typically don't work Mondays, if the holiday falls on a Monday and you're on team 1 and it's team 1's holiday, you are going to be required to work that holiday. With that being said, you are allowed to switch holidays. You are allowed to pick up holidays. That is fine. Everything needs to be in writing. I mean, I know that like Priscilla loves that holiday pay. So she might be like, well, I want to work the holiday. So that's totally okay. So you just have to communicate that, and it needs to be in writing. So that's the only thing. I know that a lot of other agencies already do that. We did take this model from another agency because this year we probably spent a good 40 to 60 hours trying to figure out who was working the holidays. And this is kind of putting that back on the staff saying, hey, we need your guys' help in helping us find coverage for the holidays. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what if you don't want to work a certain holiday? Are you still able to find somebody to cover that shift?
Yes.
Or if say if you already working another job on that holiday, how would that still work?
So if you're designated for that holiday, and let's say you're already on this, now mind you, you're going to know this in advance. So you'll know this as of March of this year. You'll know what holiday you're going to be on for this year, and you'll know what holiday you're going to be on for next year. So when it comes to another job, unless they have some sort of policy that's a little more stricter than ours, and also I understand too that people, I know actually yours in particular, I understand how yours works. So that could be a conflict, and certainly that's something we can work with independently, as long as we have stuff in writing and stuff like that. But for the most part, you're basically just going to be asked to find somebody to cover in advance and to have that in writing. So as long as you have it in writing that somebody's covering your shift, that's fine. Kim gave a really good example. She worked at a place that did this, And I guess Christmas was big for this other guy's family, and Thanksgiving was big for hers. So they just had an agreement amongst themselves that she would work every Christmas and he would work every Thanksgiving, and that's how they did it. So if you work out some sort of deal with somebody like that, that's perfectly okay. You just have to have that in writing.
Okay.
Okay, and then seniority is also going to be taken into place too. So what we'll do is we'll make the regular schedule. So like we'll put everybody who works on Mondays, you know, they'll have their regular schedule. And then if there's 3 openings, then we'll look at seniority and we'll say, okay, there's 3 openings. And this is based off of seniority. So this person is the newest person here. So they're going to have to work. They're going to be the first person we're going to pull to work. So that's kind of how that's going to go. And to be honest with you, for most holidays, we really do try to get people to go with family and things like that. We'd prefer not to pay out for a holiday anyway. You know, so certainly we would prefer for people to not be working on the holidays, but this is the best solution that we could come up with. Any questions?
I do have
Yes.
a question.
Yeah.
So if I volunteer to cover April's holiday, we sign off and everything, but then I no longer work there, like work at Bold for Christmas, what happens then?
So April then will be responsible for assisting with finding the next person that's going to take her shift. So if somebody no longer works with, so maybe choose your buddy wisely. You know, if you're like, I don't know, she doesn't really
Mhm.
so choose your buddy wisely. So but yeah, you will be responsible for assisting with finding coverage for that. But we do understand that. So we might go trickle down to the next person on the list or something like that, but within reason. So yeah, so you will be responsible for assisting with coverage for that if the person no longer works up.
Now, this includes the everyone, the PRN, part-time.
This is
Okay.
everybody. Part-time, PRN, administration, everything. We're all gonna have a number. The biggest, there is gonna be a little bit of a snafu with salaried employees because we don't get paid holidays. So we are going to have a number, but if we need to come in and we need to work, then we work. It is what it is. You know, it's the only fair way to do it is to apply to everybody. So, and then if it's your holiday to work, you can't call off during that holiday. If you call off, then you're required to work the next holiday. And then if you're on paid medical leave, you're ineligible for holiday pay. So that's just to kind of put that on there so people understand that you can't get paid for a holiday when you're on leave. Any questions? I know it's a lot. And like I said, I'm going to post it. I know it's a lot to absorb. So we'll be sure to make sure that we get everything situated and send you guys all of that. Sierra is going to review a checklist for the vehicles. And you got the floor, Sierra.
All right, so in each of the vehicles now there's going to be this car cleaning checklist, and you're going to be responsible for completing this each time that you use the vehicle. So at the end of your shift, if you're at respite, it will just be when you come back to the house, and then you will have to sign it and date it. And if there's ever a problem with any of the company vehicles, please alert the respective coordinator. And you can also let them know if they're missing any supplies in the vehicles, such as cleaning or masks, gloves, anything like that. So does anyone have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, scroll down. Now you're ready this time, Sam.
Yeah,
And I
I'm ready for
wasn't.
you. So
Okay.
just making sure
What-
that you're signing off. I think
What-
that's good.
I have a question. This is Priscilla. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm looking on the sheet. It says windshield inside and all that. Are you saying every person that drive it has to clean those after per use or how's this work?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And I think it's fair to say that like you're gonna see if the windshield's dirty and things like that. I think that one of the
Right.
things I think people are misunderstanding is that like it's our responsibility to make sure the vehicles are clean. We don't have like a cleaning crew. We are the cleaning crew. We don't have people that do that. We are the people. So I think that it's just to be clear that these are things that need to be done. We've had some really difficult times with vehicles and people taking care of them.
Mhm.
So this is the best solution that we can come up with, is asking people to clean them, because you're going to be held responsible. So if the next person goes in and the windshield's dirty, then you're going to be held responsible for that. The other thing is too, is that right now, like there's a very bad stomach bug going around. So it's also one of those things, just like.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, you
I
do?
picked,
Oh, no.
yeah, I got a respiratory from some bug that's dirt
Mhm.
somewhere.
I actually think you might be in the luckier situation, because it seems like the one that's been going around, it has been more of a vomit and the other end.
I
So
didn't
it's-
had that. I didn't had that, the
Yeah,
BM and all.
yeah,
I'm on the antibiotics though. I ran and got me some help.
yeah, I think that, I think
But you're
everybody.
right. You're right. Right now, we need to like contain doorknobs and all that kind of stuff to help cut this down some.
Yeah, exactly, because it seems to be spreading like wildfire.
Mhm.
And that also, and I think, I don't know if I covered that, but I do want to, I didn't mention this when we talked about PTO. Oh, no, we're talking about COVID. There's a COVID one that we're going to be doing. Okay, I'll talk about it then. Okay, any questions in regards to the vehicles?
No, I was finished. I'm thankful that you answered.
Okay. The next thing is training. I wanted to remind everybody that that Fatal 5 is due by the 1st of April. And just to remind you, this is not a requirement that's our requirement. This is a requirement from the Office of Developmental Programming, and it's going to need to be done every year. This is a new thing, so this is the kind of the deadline date that they gave us. So we do have to make sure that we're going on Relias and doing that. And they were very specific about it. They said that we had to do it on Relias or some other, there was like a few other places where you could do it, but Relias is the one that we have. So if you're having difficulties getting on Relias, please let me know and I'm happy to help you. Upcoming trainings, we're going to be doing individual rights. Again, this is something that's required by the state. So that is something that we're going to need to be doing. Service notes and DSP processes. Morgan is developing a process right now, which I think is really cool, like where everybody is going to have a uniform process in each house. So if you're working at Norway, it's going to be the same at Norway. Like, so meds and the books and everything's going to be the same at Norway as it is at Shasta, as it is at Fleet, as it is at, scenery. So everything will be the same across the board.
Uniform.
Yeah, I think that might be easier for everybody too. What do you think? Yeah.
I'm on board with it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. In the morning, everybody was saying they like that too. And then I just wanted to remind everybody that you're required to do 24 hours of trainings per year. So it's a new year. So everybody kind of needs to start getting on those. Starting with Fatal 5 is perfect. And then med training, Angie, you want to talk about that quick?
Sure. We talked a little bit about it this morning. We don't have a specific plan in place right now, but I think on the full training that we're probably going to have to do a weekend training in March. It's just going to take a lot of coordination for staff that work weekends or have different jobs. So just, keep your eyes posted. Michelle and I are going to have to start putting something together for that.
And then the other
Most of you think that you've already done it, but most of you haven't. You've done the modified med training that was in effect during COVID, but even with that, you're still required to take the full online training.
And I think the important thing that Angie said is that you're required. It's a requirement for your job. So it's not something to take lightly. everybody has to do it. You have to be med trained. These are not rules that we're just pulling out of a hat. So
Wish it was.
I know, right? Because it would make our lives easier too. If we didn't have to med train everybody, trust me, our lives would be much easier. Any questions?
Yes, I wanted a question about, I have a question about the Fatal 5.
Uh-huh.
Is it necessary when you're done with it to print out the certificate?
No, you could even just send me a message and say, hey, I'm done. What I'm doing is once a week I'm going on, or once or twice a week I'm going on and printing out a list and checking it. And then I can just print out the certificates. If you do it at one of the houses, the other thing that a lot of people have done that I think is pretty cool is they've saved certificates of training. When they do trainings, they save it in their file where their timesheet is. So if you're doing it at one of the houses on one of the house computers, you can just save it on the timesheet file, which is kind of neat. But I'll just go into the system and grab it. So no, you don't have to.
Okay, I did it yesterday. Fatal 5.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so another thing I wanted to just remind people about, I know that we're still talking about COVID, and it's not really just COVID, it's any type of communicable things going around. Like we just said, there is a virus going around. When it comes to COVID, we are obviously, you still have to report any positives to your supervisor, and then they'll let myself or Angie know, and then we'll get in contact with you to kind of determine who's been exposed. If you've been exposed, you have to wear a mask for 5 days. If you are positive, you have to quarantine for 5 days. And then if you are supporting somebody, and that's like you supported somebody that has COVID and then you wind up getting COVID, then we will pay you for the time that you're unable to work. Because it's obviously presumed that you got COVID while you were at work. The other thing is like when it comes to cleaning supplies, if you guys need cleaning supplies, if you need masks, if you need anything, please let us know. We don't want you going without. We want to make sure that you guys have all of the things that you need to make sure you're healthy. Angie mentioned this morning that she has instant tests in her office. So certainly she's happy to share them. They're the agency ones, but if you take one, make sure you let her know so she can replace them. That makes sense. And then if you go to her office because you need an instant test because you think you might have been exposed, please wear a mask. Don't expose Angie, because people have done that. They've gone in her office and they're like, well, I think I have COVID. She's like, where's your mask? Like, you're going to wind up getting me sick. So Angie's been, knock on wood, Angie's been pretty lucky so far.
So far.
We'll see. So does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Morgan briefly has some comments in regards to service notes.
Okay, so I'm just going to take like a couple minutes to kind of review service notes as just like a little refresher. They are formal billable documents, so they're very important. It's how we get paid to then pay you. I think one of the most important things that I always remember in documentation and service notes is like, if you didn't document it, then it didn't happen. We are responsible for meeting people, like the people we support's needs, but also we bill for those services. So if we don't have documentation to back it up, it can be an issue for a number of reasons. So with that being said, just make it a priority to complete service notes for each person after you do your shift, and make it a priority every shift to get them done in a timely manner. Everyone has their own service notes in the community and respite if they're there for long term. If they're there for a couple of days or on the weekend, then they're on, it's just the general respite service note, and that's just found on the master job form. They should be done, like I said, in a timely manner, and ideally at the end of the shift. And even we say like 15 minutes at the end of your shift, you can kind of allot to that. That's if, you know, everything is kind of taken care of and the individual is okay and is cared for, then you can kind of focus on documentation. And then to just take the quote of like, if you didn't document it, then it didn't happen even further. It's also important to make sure that not only do you do service notes, but they're also like detailed and descriptive. The purpose of service notes are to give like a good picture of what the individual did and how you supported them in those activities. So you may do a service note in a timely manner, but say it says none or NA the whole way through it, that is not giving us a good picture of what the support that you gave during that shift. There are going to be shifts where not a lot happened, and I understand that. But just state that and explain why there wasn't much done. And even during those shifts, there's still things that you did to support them, even if you don't think so. If you can kind of just think back and try to pull as much as you can to kind of give a good detail on what you did do during that shift, or what they did, or how you supported them, or how you prompted them, or did you cook them dinner? Anything that you can pull is going to be more helpful than the NA or none, because it's just, I mean, it's not helpful, and it leaves room for assumptions. And we know that you're helping them, so we just kind of want to hear about that. Even if it's just like no personal care was completed, but you know, the individual was sleeping the whole time. That's totally fine. Just explain that. Also know that we read them daily, and there are a number of things we use them for. Program specialists use them for monthlies and quarterlies. So we really need the notes to be done in a timely manner, but also detailed, so that we can do our jobs as best as we can. There are also so for people that are long-term or in the community, you're going to find like specialized, individualized questions in the service notes. Those are there for a reason. They're very important. And I would like for you guys to do like your best to answer them. Those are usually there because we want to monitor something. Maybe we want to make sure things are done, but we also kind of want to, sometimes they're for goals and we have to report for progress. So it's hard to report for progress and report it on a goal if we don't have the data to back that up. So just make sure you're really completing a note in its entirety. And then another thing that I'm seeing, and it's usually on those notes where there's not a lot that happened during those shifts, is sometimes people will talk about the cleaning that they did. And I think that's great that you're cleaning and that should be communicated, but service notes are not the place for it. The only time you should put about cleaning is if the individual did it, if they helped, if they paired with you, if they did any aspect of that cleaning, then definitely talk about it. We definitely want to know about that, but just remember that the service notes are for the individual and how you supported them and nothing else. If you're going to talk about like the cleaning that you did, that should go in the cleaning checklist in the home book, and we'll kind of go over that a little bit later. But so also just specifically for respite, that you're gonna, and some of you probably have seen, there's binders for daily documentation in the homes for each individual. So just try to get in the habit, if you aren't already, to like look at those binders and fill them out as much as you can from your shift. In those binders, you'll find like medication records of some form to show that they're taking their medications, petty cash forms, and then the daily documentation sheets for people that have been there and been with us longer. And in those sheets, you're going to find food tracking, behavior data, medication, and medical information. So just make sure that you're doing those, because they're also there for a reason. We're trying to monitor those things, and most of the time they've been recommended by a doctor to be monitored. So if we don't have the data, then we can't react to what's being monitored, and we can't kind of follow up with that. So just make sure you're doing that. And then there's also a home book with a communication log from staff, for staff to read after every shift. And then that's where the cleaning checklist comes in, where you can put what cleaning you did during your shift. Just remember that the communication log is not another service note, so you don't have to go into like full detail and do a whole nother service note. Just take what you would want to know coming into a shift and write that down so staff know. But that's all I have. I just know that it's a lot, and documentation right now, it's kind of all over the place across all the houses. So right now, like Sam said, we're really trying to work on making things consistent, and they all look the same across all the houses as best we can. So kind of be on the lookout for that. But until then, just try to get your service notes done timely, make it a priority, but then also do the daily documentation in the homes and the binders. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'm open to that, but that's all I have.
Thank you, Morgan. Does anybody have any
Yeah.
questions? And I think just reminding people that and I think you mentioned it, that service notes are attached to our funding. So it's really, really important that people get their service notes in, or else we can't bill for your time. So that's a big thing. The next thing is the scheduling app. I'm not going to go into this too much because I'll be posting something tomorrow on Band. So we are going to start using a scheduling app and a time and attendance app. We're going to roll out the schedule first. And I'm going to be posting a training tomorrow with some documentation on how to download the app to your phone. I think for staff, it's going to be so much easier. We're going to post 2 weeks in advance for the schedule, so you'll kind of have more of a routine. And down the line, we might be able to do even more than 2 weeks. You'll be able to request your time off from the app. You'll be able to switch shifts with people from the app. You'll be able to pick up shifts. You'll be able to say, oh, I want to pick up a shift. Let's see. So you can pick up shifts from the app. So tomorrow I'm going to post a video, and I'm expecting everyone to have it downloaded by the 27th. And on the 27th, I'm going to be in the office. So, and I want to add this because I just want to let you know that on the 27th, I'll be in the office to help with the scheduling app and any questions anybody has for that. But also, if anybody has any issues with Relias and they're having difficulties with Relias, I'm also available that day too to go over anything that has to do with Relias if people want some help getting on. But in the meantime, you can certainly call me anytime and I'm happy to help you. And then the first schedule is going to be posted on the 27th on the app. And we will stop posting them on band. So there will no longer be schedules posted on band. You can no longer switch shifts on band. You should be doing all of that through the app. And you'll be doing, and it'll be for the week of 3/6 will be the week that's going to be posted. So anybody have any questions? I know it's going to be a little bit of a challenge when we first roll it out, but once we roll it out, I think it's going to make people's lives a lot easier. And then time and attendance, we're thinking in May, we're going to roll that out. There will be a few people that we're going to ask to pilot that. So you may be amongst the people that we're going to ask to pilot it, so they'll try. The nice thing about time and attendance is you'll no longer have to fill out a timesheet. So I think that'll be nice for you guys. You'll just fill it out in time and attendance, and then it'll automatically generate. You will have to do mileage and reimbursement separately. There's a separate spreadsheet that's very similar. Actually, it's the same thing as what you're using right now for mileage and reimbursements. And that will be submitted every 2 weeks for now. So we'll be changed, like I said, with this app, we're going to have to change some policies. I'm just not 100% sure which policies it's going to be yet, because we kind of have to roll it out and see what needs to change before we do that. So we'll have separate trainings on the scheduling app when we get there. But again, I really think that it's going to make everybody's lives easier. At least that's the hope. Does that make sense? Any questions? Well, that's all I have, unless anybody has anything to add or any questions. I know that this is a lot of information. I certainly don't expect everybody to retain everything. What I'll do in the future is I'm going to post all the policies we reviewed, and then if anybody has any questions, they can certainly let me know. Okay.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you,
Sounds
everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a wonderful night, guys.
Thank you,
You
Sarah.
too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye all.